Welcome to Wisdom Trek with Gramps. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, and we are on day 2488 of our trek. The purpose of Wisdom Trek is to create a legacy of wisdom, to seek out discernment and insights, and to boldly grow where few have chosen to grow before. In today's Wisdom Nugget, we'll be exploring Psalm chapter 31, verses 1 through 8 from the New Living Translation, a passage that speaks deeply to the human experience of seeking refuge, trusting in God, and finding security in Him during moments of distress. Psalm 31 is a psalm of David, and it reflects both a deep trust in God and his desperation in times of difficulty. What's beautiful about this psalm is its raw honesty and its deep reliance on God as a refuge. David faced many trials throughout his life, times of danger, betrayal, and even his own personal failures, but he consistently turned to God for protection and deliverance. This psalm invites us to do the same, no matter what challenges we face. So let's dive into Psalm chapter 31, verses 1 through 8, and discover how it can guide us in our daily lives. O Lord, I have come to you for protection. Don't let me be disgraced. Save me, for you do what is right. Turn your ear and listen to me. Rescue me quickly. Be my rock of protection, a fortress where I am safe. You are a rock and my fortress. For the honor of your name, lead me out of this danger. Pull me from the trap my enemies set for me, for I find protection in you alone. I entrust my spirit into your hand. Rescue me, Lord, for you are a faithful God. I hate those who worship worthless idols. I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in your unfailing love, for you have seen my troubles, and you care about the anguish of my soul. You have not handed me over to my enemies, but you have set me in a safe place. This psalm begins in verse 1 with David's plea for protection. O Lord, I have come to you for protection. Don't let me be disgraced. Save me, for you do what is right. From the very first verse, we see David's complete reliance on God. He turns to the Lord for refuge, recognizing that only God can offer the protection he needs. David's request is personal and direct. He is not asking for general safety. He's asking God to prevent him from being disgraced or shamed amid his troubles. This could refer to a variety of situations in David's life, from his personal failures to being pursued by enemies. He's seeking not only physical protection, but also spiritual and emotional preservation. He wants his reputation, his honor, and his relationship with God to remain intact through whatever trials he faces. In verse 2, David continues by asking God to turn your ear to listen to me, rescue me quickly, be my rock of protection, a fortress where I am safe. The imagery here is powerful. David is asking God to listen to his cry and respond swiftly. He describes God as a rock and fortress, a place of solid security where he can find refuge from the dangers surrounding him. This is a great reminder for us. When we face challenges, it's natural to seek protection and security. But where do we turn? David teaches us that God is our ultimate refuge, a place of safety and strength when life storms threaten to overwhelm us. We can cry out to him for help, knowing that he hears us and he is able to rescue us. David emphasizes the idea of God as his fortress in verse 3. You are my rock and my fortress. For the honor of your name, lead me out of danger. The repetition of God as his rock and fortress underscores how foundational this truth is to David. He recognizes that God is his solid ground, his unshakable protection in times of trouble. There's nothing more stable and secure than the Lord. But notice what David says next. For the honor of your name, lead me out of this danger. David's request for deliverance isn't purely self-centered. He is concerned about God's reputation as well. He knows that God's character is at stake when his people are distressed. David appeals to God's honor and asks for deliverance, not just for his own sake, but so that God's name will be glorified. He understands that his life, as a servant of God, is tied to God's larger purpose and plan. In verse 4, David continues, Pull me from the trap my enemies set for me, for I find protection in you alone. Here David is accurately aware of the dangers around him. His enemies have laid traps, and the threat is real. But amid this danger, David expresses an unwavering trust in God. I find protection in you alone, he says. This is a powerful statement. David doesn't rely on his own strength, military power, or cleverness to escape the enemy's traps. He trusts solely in God's protection. In the same way, we are called to trust God completely when we face physical, emotional, and spiritual threats. He is the one who can deliver us from the traps of the enemy. One of the most significant verses in this passage is verse 5. I entrust my spirit into your hand. Rescue me, Lord, for you are a faithful God. This verse may sound familiar to many of us because it uses the same phrase that Jesus used on the cross when he was about to die in Luke chapter 23, verse 46. It is a powerful declaration of a complete trust in God's care, even in the face of death. David is not just entrusting his immediate circumstances to God, he is entrusting his very life and spirit into God's hand. This is an ultimate expression of faith and surrender. David knows that God is faithful and can be trusted with everything, including his life and his future. He calls on God to rescue him, confident in God's character and faithfulness. This verse challenges us to ask ourselves, are we willing to entrust everything to God? Are we willing to place our lives, our hopes, our fears, and even our spirits in his hands? Trusting God isn't about asking him for help in a difficult situation. It's about surrendering every aspect of our life to him, confident that he is faithful and trustworthy. In verse 6, David makes a strong statement. I hate those who worship worthless idols. I trust in the Lord. This verse may seem like a shift in tone, but it reveals David's deep conviction. He has seen the futility of worshiping idols, objects that have no power or ability to save. In contrast, David fully trusts in the living God, who alone has the power to protect and deliver. The contrast between idol worship and trusting in God is significant. Idols represent anything that we trust apart from God, and that could be wealth, power, success, or even ourselves. David's rejection of idols reflects his understanding that only God is worthy of our trust. Anything else that we rely on is ultimately empty and powerless. We live in a world where it's easy to place our trust in things other than God. But like David, we must remind ourselves that only God is our true refuge. Everything else will fail us, but God is faithful and trustworthy. David shifts to praise in verses 7 and 8. I will be glad and rejoice in your unfailing love, for you have seen my troubles, and you care about the anguish of my soul. You have not handed me over to my enemies, but you have set me in a safe place. Here David reflects on God's unfailing love. Despite the troubles that he faced, he is confident that God has been with him, seeing his distress and caring for him amid his anguish. David's troubles were not hidden from God, and neither are ours. God sees our pain, our fears, and our struggles, and he cares deeply about the anguish of our souls. David praises God for not handing him over to his enemies. Instead, God has set him in a safe place. This idea of being placed in a secure, protected spot is a beautiful picture of God's deliverance. David recognizes that God has rescued him from his immediate danger and placed him in a position of safety and security. This is a reminder that God is not distant or uncaring in our times of trouble. He sees our struggles, he cares for us, and he has the power to deliver us. We can rejoice in his unfailing love, knowing that he is our protector and our refuge. As we reflect on Psalm chapter 31, verses 1 through 8, we're reminded of several essential truths that we can apply to our lives. First, we must trust in God as our refuge in times of trouble. Just as David cried out to God for protection, we can confidently approach God, knowing that he is our rock and fortress. He is always present, ready to listen to our cries for help. Second, we need to place our trust entirely in God's hands. David's declaration of faith, I entrust my spirit into your hands, challenges us to surrender every aspect of our lives to God. Whether facing danger, uncertainty, or fear, we can trust that God is faithful and will protect us and deliver us. Finally, we must reject anything that competes with God for our trust. Like David, we must turn away from idols, whether they are material things, relationships, or self-reliance. And then we need to put our trust in God alone. As we conclude today's episode of Wisdom Trek, I encourage you to meditate on Psalm 31 this week and consider how God has been your refuge and deliverer. No matter what you're facing today, know that God sees your trouble, cares for you, and will bring you through to a place of safety and joy. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Psalm 31. Until the next time, may God's peace and strength be with you as you continue your trek toward wisdom. And if you found this podcast insightful, please subscribe and leave us a review. Then encourage your friends and family to join us and come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, creating a legacy. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, and most importantly, I am your friend as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal. And as we take this trek of life together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. I am Guthrie Chamberlain, reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and create a great day every day. See you next time for more daily wisdom.